Lorin, thanks so much for joining us. It's a
delightful.
real pleasure to have you on.
I miss England so much.
Oh, really?
I love London, and it's fun to be a Californian, like a beach person. 'Cause I've lived most of my life within a mile of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
Like I like to live right near the shore. And like once I was in London, and I was like looking around, like, where am I? Where's the tube? And so this guy comes walking along on the street, and I go, well, he looks like he knows his way around. And it was this wearing this bespoke suit, this fantastic looking guy. And I said, could you tell me where's the subway or the tube? And like for half a second, he goes like, it was like, you don't talk to me. Do you understand? Like, I'm a high class person. You don't just speak to me without being introduced. For about half a second, and then I could see him process my accent, and then go, he's an American, and then shift to being friendly, and then like, he's probably a Californian. He could tell, and then he just dropped the whole thing, and all of a sudden, I was his friend, and he was like took me under his wing and was showing me. We don't have that same structure.
Yeah.
Like here, Camille and I were both born right here at the beach, near the beach in LA, and our mothers were. But in Los Angeles, if you're here for a week, you're an old timer. It's like, if you're here, you're a denizen. You own it. If you're here, you're an inhabitant. It's a totally different attitude.
Yeah. There's a constant class war on the streets of Britain. I felt when I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and when I got back to London, I was just in shock at how the striation, the levels, the barriers in the streets. Yeah. Wow. Cool. Well,
it's refreshing to me. It's kind of like it's exotic. Achieve that kind of order.
Yeah. Awesome.
But that brings up about the point that the meditation traditions come from these intense caste systems.
Yeah.
And the people who wound up in the monasteries might have been just the debris, the people who couldn't fit in.
Yeah.
Broken and weird and transgender. Like, they didn't talk about it. There's very few notes, but in the monasteries, people who, like, why would somebody join a monastery when everybody's supposed to get married and have kids? It's people who, when they hit puberty, whatever age that would be, 10 or 11 or 12 or 13, just freaked out and said, I'm out of here. Or their parents sold them to the monastery because there was no food. They couldn't feed them. For much of human civilization time, there would be famines and times when there was no food, and literally people were starving, even if they were farmers. And so they would give one of their kids to the monastery. So it's a motley crew.
Yeah. Wow, man. I love that we've dived straight in. But Lorin, for a minute, could you introduce yourselves to our listeners? Because I don't think some of them may not have heard of you. And it'd be... I've watched nearly every interview I can find of yours on YouTube or whatever. But it'd be great to get an intro. So welcome to the show, Lorin. Who are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jasmine. So my name is Lorin Roche, and I grew up at the beach in Southern California, surfing, sailing, skiing, body surfing, diving for fish in abalone, and hunting. My dad had read Hemingway, and so men hunt. So from the time I was 7, I would go on hunting expeditions with my father to deer hunting, and we'd eat the deer, and we'd go to Africa and hunt. And by the time I was 10, I was like a really good shot. So I could wander around Africa alone while my dad was off hunting big game, and just hunting and fishing and feeding the tribe. Oh, and also cars. It's important to have a sports car. So I drove all kinds of race cars. The 60s era American sports cars. And when I was 18, I was working my way through college at the University of California at Irvine, this new campus that's in Orange County. It's just south of Los Angeles, about 100 kilometers. And we had to be in experiments as part of being a student. We had to be in an experiment every quarter, which is about 10 weeks. So I signed up to be in an interesting sounding experiment on brainwave biofeedback. And they had a physiology lab in one of the new buildings, and it wasn't even occupied yet. So there's a physiology lab inside this brand new huge building, and there's no one else in the building. And or at least on those 2 floors. So it's just ultra quiet. And the physiology lab was the several rooms, and there was a room that was completely black out, completely dark, and completely soundproofed. And I was inside what's called the Faraday Cage, which is like a copper, think of a screen door, but it's copper to block out electronic signals. And they came in and they put wires all over my head and my hands and my body. And I was a control subject. So I got no brainwave biofeedback. They just said, don't move too much, you'll rip off the wires. And we'll be back in a few hours. They closed the door, and I'm there. I'm there in this pitch black room, utterly silent, utterly about as silent as you could get without going to extreme measures. On one of those Barca lounger type chairs, it's really super comfortable, and just no instructions whatsoever. Now, it was 1968, and I hadn't heard of meditation. So there's like no information about what you're supposed to do. So I was just there, sort of like you are in the ocean when you're surfing. Surfing, most of the time, if you describe surfing, it's paddling, which is maybe 20% of the time, wading, which is maybe 40 or 50 or 60% of the time, and then you get a ride for 30 seconds. That's mostly what surfing is. So I was used to just being in nature, where you just be there, and you perceive with your senses. There's seeing, there's vastness all around, there's hearing. So I would just, okay, blackness and silence. And I sort of fell into a level of relaxation that was beyond anything I had experienced. And athletes experience intense relaxation. If you've ever run a marathon or swam a long ways, when you stop and if you just lie down, your whole body's vibrating with fatigue, and it's an incredible experience. Well, this was falling into relaxation the way that athletes will fall into restfulness after long exertion. Like if you go for 6 hours, there's this state you enter where your whole body is just a hum, like a motor. Well, what this was, I say, fell into just the primordial experience of what a body is. This is the life of the cells. This the hum of life itself. So there was the breathing. Yeah, that's interesting. There's a heartbeat. And then underneath the breath and the heartbeat was just this sense of a quiet, ready aliveness. Just completely alert with all senses, but alert to nothing, because there's nothing to see at all. There's like not one pinpoint of light. There wasn't one sound. And so in a certain way, it was like falling asleep. Like we fall asleep every night, but I fell awake. So I fell into the state of intense aliveness, way beyond anything I ever knew. Now, on a perfect day of sailing, it's incredible. I used to sail catamarans, and so you're out in the ocean. I love sailing in storms, and you're just with the waves. And after that, there's an incredible feeling, of aliveness, and surfing, diving under waves, skiing. This was more intense in terms of being physically present, alive, and vital, way more than I had ever experienced. It was just a relaxation so total that there's a zone of utter fearlessness. There's like zero fear. And I'm always a little afraid when I go in the ocean, like there's sharks and creatures. I think, and I've been in the ocean my whole life, so there's a little bit of fear. There's always a tingle, like where are the currents, where are the riptides, where are the waves, where are the creatures, how far am I from shore? Is that within my swimming capacity? There's a certain kind of like a light level of fear being in nature. This was no fear. So I dropped into a zone where there's not one particle of fear in my body, this utter relaxation. And space itself seemed to become friendly, again, made out of some sort of texture, as if the universe itself is this friendly place. And after, I think it was about 2.5 hours, the research assistant came on the speaker, said, okay, we have enough data. And I said, I think you better give me a while. Because when he said that, I felt my body, I felt like I need a while to like rev up the neurons from this state of total timeless absorption in just being. When I walked out of the lab, I was in this state of aliveness that is like the state after an incredible day of surfing or sailing, but many times more intense. Like colors were incredibly vivid. When I would look at somebody, it's like I could see the life force in them. And when I look at plants, there was like a life force in them. So I went to the lab as part of the experiment every day for several weeks.
Wow.
And I got used to functioning in this state of total relaxation. And I sort of got addicted to it. And that's the story of my life. Like taking calculus tests, I would be taking a test, and my mind was so clear that I would go, oh yeah, I saw that formula last night when I glanced at the textbook. And I could just in my mind see the formula and see the hints from the textbook. And then during the test, just solve it. And then in English class, I would just sit down, like you have to write an essay. I would just go, okay, here's my outline, write the essay and turn it in early. And it almost never functioned that well in my life. So I was functioning, like in every level, I was functioning way better than I had ever functioned. Taking calculus tests, writing, talking to people. and just moving around the world. So I thought, this is great. So the lab experiment had me there for a couple hours a day, every day. And then this experience of being just completely clear, all my senses functioning superbly, it lasted full on for a month. And then it started to fade away. And that's when I started to study yoga and meditation.
So I wanted to ask, I love this story, by the way. I've heard you mention in other interviews that you went through a period of really intense practice doing asana and meditation, like in a repeat. And I wanted to dig in a little bit to what asana you were doing, what kind of practice were you a part of in those days?
Yeah. Well, we learned the 14 basic asanas.
Okay. And
it was a flow. So it was an easy flow where you don't hold the asanas for a long time. It's about moving every joint of the body, moving in all dimensions. And it was I was so lucky because just the year before, they had the attitude in my school was, we'll just meditate all day, get as many hours of meditation as you can. And they would do these long sits where they would just sit for hours and hours. When I was in my teacher training, I was 19 and 20. And they had come up with this program or this sequence where you do some easy pranayama. It's called Sukha pranayama, just in and then out. Then you do this full set of asanas. It might be 20 minutes, and then you do pranayama again for a couple minutes, and then meditate. And we all meditated about 45 minutes. Like, we were supposed to meditate for 25 minutes because we're all in our early 20s, but we all would meditate for 45 minutes, which must be some kind of body cycle. And then do pranayama again, and then the full set of asana.
Right.
And this is so brilliant. I'm so lucky that I arrived at the time where they had figured that out, because it's absolutely brilliant. Because after months of this, I was still, and I was just in a room all day. I was just in great shape. I could go run on the beach. It felt physically fantastic. Yeah. So it helps you to integrate what meditation does.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Meditation can be dangerous in that it opens up your senses so much that you can't cope. You're not ready to be a different person.
That's interesting.
What's really interesting about that is like after actually my first Vipassana meditation retreat, I hadn't spoken to many people about this or told them, but for the next 2 weeks after, I was almost crying every single day, and I lived on the 4th floor of off of Wimbledon High Street. Prior to that, I didn't hear like any buses. You habituate to all the noises, but every single time a bus or even a car went past, it felt like I was getting hit in my my body.
Yes.
And it was so funny because it wasn't even that I could really hear it so much. I could just feel it.
Yes. That's called the Dilation Syndrome. And so your senses wake up so much. And it's if you haven't developed calluses, so to speak, to deal with it. So everything is shocking. So people that meditate a little bit too much for their body capacity, say over a period of months, can develop that semi-permanently, and then they become artificial introverts, sort of afraid of the world. There's a lot of people that have had this go on for years, and their whole life becomes about that sort of cringing, being hit, and then they try to adapt. And there's various things that people do to adapt. So when that happens, you want to do off complementary meditations, like sort of like build up boundaries. Do things like like in Tai Chi and Qigong and Aikido, where you cultivate the sense of boundaries around you, and you meditate on that instead of noticing. So a simple way of looking at what happened is that you were practicing mindfulness, which is to a great extent sensefulness, noticing teeny sensations. And so it turned up the dial on your kinesthetic senses, just like if we turned up some dials on this computer recording, we get all kinds of feedback. You turn up the dial, the amplitude, the volume on kinesthesia, hearing and kinesthesia, and then creating feedback loops. That's solvable, by the way.
Yeah.
It's totally solvable. It's to be expected.
Yeah, I didn't experience it after, but every other person who I'd spoken to later on, they hadn't mentioned anything like that. So I thought something was wrong with, well, not wrong with me, but maybe I was just more sensitive than others.
Oh, I've had very similar experiences after retreats as well. The world can feel like a bit of a brutal place after you've spent 10 days contemplating your navel.
Yes, and that's to be avoided. That's from lack of boundaries. If you dial up your sensitivity, you also need to dial up strength of boundaries. And one of the problems in meditation, in denial, is that the meditation world tends to deny that there's negative side effects, where there's lots of negative side effects to meditation. And any real sport, everybody knows that there's dangers. Anything. Tennis. There are people playing tennis over there. Well, there's lots of different tennis injuries. There's minor ones like getting blisters on your feet, to getting sunburned, to overusing your tendons. Singers injure their voices. Adele had to cancel these huge concerts in England because she loved making those huge sounds, and she blew out her voice. Every sport. In meditation, there's a sense of denial, so they don't notice. They're not recording the negative side effects. And the other is not listening. If you really listen to students, you'll find out it's incredible. Like when I train meditation teachers, and one of the things that we do that's so simple is when people come to learn to meditate, just listen, do 2 sessions. Just tell me about your natural meditative experiences. When do you feel most at home in the world? When do you feel thrilled to be alive? What are your natural doorways into where you just feel like I'm in me, I'm being me? Okay, well, let's build your meditation practice to be that. And that's actually what meditation is. Meditation practices in general, it's how to be at home in yourself and thrilled to be alive. That's what a meditation is. That's what Om means. It's at home. I'm at home in the universe, and I'm ecstatic to be. It's a privilege every moment to participate in creation. It's a thrill. It's a privilege. And we find that if you just listen to people, have a couple of sessions where like an hour and a half, you just, well, tell me about your when And you'll find the most amazing things. Almost everybody has had profound meditative experiences. They don't know that that's meditation. It's not categorized as meditation. And as you listen to people, they'll teach you how to teach them. And also, it feels like such an honor when people are talking about there's moments when they experience the magic of life. It feels like a privilege to be there listening. It's almost like you'd pay them. When a teacher's in this position, it's like you almost want to pay the student because they're teaching you something that's infinitely precious. And it's just extraordinary. I mean, meditation is a natural human experience. It's instinctive. It's built into our bodies. And the more natural you are in your approach to yourself, the better. In the lab, at the University of California at Irvine, after a while, they developed UC Irvine Medical School, and they were doing physiological research on meditation. They had people, I would go in, they would stick needles in my arms and take blood samples every couple of minutes. UCLA was doing really good research, and Harvard Medical School was doing research. So these three centers of research were focusing on the physiology of meditation. And it turns out that even with the beginner, someone who's had just a couple of weeks to get used to the idea of meditating, and with the simplest meditation instructions, like, okay, just pick something you want to think about. Okay, go ahead and hang out with it, but don't make any effort. Don't block out thoughts. Just welcome everything. Even in a lab, which is weird. It's weird to go into a lab to meditate. Maybe measuring a physiological baseline and then say, okay, meditate. And in 3 minutes, people would drop into a state of rest deeper than deep sleep. This is what I experienced spontaneously when in the lab that I was in 1968. You drop into the state of relaxation deeper than deep sleep. And it's like so refreshing. So this is a major scientific finding. And although it was replicated over and over and over again in the 70s and 80s, it's still not what people are thinking about when they think about meditation. They're not thinking of this is the best vacation I've ever been on. I don't need any tools. I don't need to interfere with my mind. I don't need to work at it. I can just give over to this innate instinctive rhythm.
I love how in your book, Meditation Made Easy, you emphasize this a lot. And Bill actually bought the book for me, which was a lovely gift. And when you, like, I find it so rare that other teachers really emphasize the human experience just naturally. And how do you see meditation being spread in this way? Like, that this is actually how you would say, it's easier than, just even having to sit down and follow some formulaic structure of an exercise. How do you see this being spread, and what are the barriers to it?
Say that again, but give me get more specific in your question.
So in terms of the mainstream apps and places that are taught, even in schools, it's all based around, I think, the more formal meditation styles. But it's so rare to find someone who is advocating the style of meditation that you would say, you would be speaking about. And how can we, allow others to know more about it in such a way when the main offering is what has always been offered?
That is that is the challenge. And the things that are more formal, they sound appealing because people really want to know. Like they really want something that helps them. Now, part of what's going on is that the people who are meditating, to a great extent, many of them, they don't go to church anymore. And so what's happening is that the meditation teachers take on the role of being a priest and teaching religion. And so, like, if you think about, like, a white people's church, it's all, you go in and you sit still, and you try to act spiritual and be all respectful. Like, you're kind of sitting there. And so Westerners who approach meditation are, in a sense, being blindsided. And there's the meditation, what is coming at us through our neglected religious yearning. So meditation is sitting, it's actually just sitting in church trying to be good, trying to be observant. And there's a lot of value to that. However, if you want to just be able to, like, every day, week after week, year after year, be able to walk in the door and say, instead of saying, like, God, I need a beer right now, or, oh, I need a glass of wine, or, I had such a day, I need to smoke something. If you want meditation to be it works so well that it's instinctively satisfying, then you need to construct your practice so that you're utterly natural with yourself. And it doesn't work to be reverent or mindful. People are mindful all day at work. People are concentrating all day at work. If you make meditation into being work, then you'll have to go somewhere else to cut loose. So this approach that I'm describing here is the technology of meditation that's for people who live in the world. Meditation for people who have jobs, a home, they have a love life is very different technically than meditation for professional monks who their job is to act holy all day. When we come home from work, when we get up in the morning, we need to be so free with ourselves that it's like, bring it on. Bring on the thoughts. Bring on my to-do list. Bring on the tears. Bring on the laughter. So we need to be so free that in a space of a couple minutes of meditation, we can be like crying, we can get mad, we can feel turned on sexually, we can start laughing again, then we can get, okay, my to-do list, or we can be absorbed in our to-do list and endorse ourselves. Actually rejoice how great that I have a couple minutes to sit here. I've had some peace of mind, and now I can, like, feel into my to-do list and all the people I'm going to see today. That's what meditation is like for somebody who's responsible and who has things to do. It's a very dynamic state, and while you're deeply relaxed, deeper than sleep, you still think a lot, because what the body does when in a state of relaxation is that it tunes itself up and heals. It does repair work like during sleep. And so this full rotation, it's very much like a movie where you're like, okay, now I'm sexually turned on, now I'm falling asleep in meditation, now I'm mad at my boss, or I'm mad at this, now I'm worried about this item on my to-do list, now I'm crying, now I'm laughing. And it's like, whew, now I'm completely clear. It's that dynamic. And that works. And millions of people have been taught that style of meditation. It's the Buddhists and the mindfulness people, they're like the best thinkers. There's like hundreds or tens of thousands of therapists and people with PhDs and researchers. It's the best meditation community, the Buddhists, doing the best intellectual work. I mean, it's a fantastic community. The tradition I'm coming from, it doesn't really have a name. It's in the realm of yoga, and you could call it Tantra, but we don't know, in the West, we don't know what Tantra means. It's a tantric text, and it's engineered from the beginning to be for people who live in the world.
I wonder, I was hoping to ask you a bit more about that. So there's a few topics that around Buddhism that would be interesting to explore. Perhaps the first would be, I wonder if you've dug into the Theravadan maps of enlightenment, and it'd just be interesting to hear your thoughts on that.
It's so sophisticated. I mean, I could say I've only glanced at the literature, and a lot of my friends over the last 52 years are Buddhists, and I'm Tibetans. I love the Tibetan Buddhists. I just love them. And Camille does too. Camille and I met at Project Tibet in Santa Fe, where I was teaching. But I'm interested in the maps, and I'm in a sense starting at the beginning. I did my bachelor's degree and my master's and my PhD at the maps that meditators make to describe their internal experiences. And so the maps, my engagement with the map making has been, how do people make sense of their experience? And it's just, I'm interested in regular people, like people who have babies, people who are entrepreneurs, people who live alone but they want to be in relationship, people who used to be married, now they're divorced and living alone, people who work in factories, soldiers. I'm interested in just regular people. What maps did they make? And there's all these sensations that we feel during meditation and afterward, because we turn up the dial on sensations. There's all these emotions. Like it's, for example, with women, it's very common for women to cry for months when they begin meditating. There's a cry, the whole meditation, just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry for months, sometimes 6 months. There's all emotions, and then all manner of thoughts. So that's the level of discourse that I'm engaged with. I don't have a critique of the Theravada maps, except that we've received this incredible gift from the monks and the swamis and the lamas and the yogis of this data from their explorations of meditation. And our challenge is to take the gift of all these techniques. Like Buddha said once, monks, I've given you 84,000 different Dharma doors for all the different kinds of people that there are. Our challenge is to accept the gift and then reinvent meditation to be truly appropriate for all the kinds of people in the modern world that are wanting to meditate, which is lots. There's lots of different kinds of people. And the last thing we want to do when someone comes to learn to meditate is impose on them some creepy technique that's just not native to them.
Nice. I wonder what your thoughts are on the concept of enlightenment or awakening. That again is...
I banned the word starting in around 1975. Like I just stopped using it.
Yeah.
Because and the people that I was around throughout the early 70s, it was just blah, 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 enlightenment this, blah, blah, blah. It just became, it was just a garbage word.
Yeah.
Used to mean that you're not okay the way you are, and there's this higher state you're supposed to get to.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like saying, like to regular people, dude, your car is for shit. Got to buy a new car of this particular brand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
So I didn't use the word for decades. And then about 10 years ago, I thought, but that's a beautiful word. Like, let's use enlightenment lowercase and like in invisible air quotes, like to talk about, let's use it in a positive
way.
I think that in the West, we have to reinvent the concept of enlightenment, and it'll probably take a couple hundred years. I mean, as we all know, most of the time when somebody says I'm enlightened, it means that they're starting a deranged cult, and they're going to be using they're converting meditation into mind control techniques, and then years later you'll hear the inside story of abuse and degradation.
Yeah,
it's really like if I'm it's like if there's a master, then there's got to be a lot of slaves.
Yeah,
and as we were talking about earlier, in India and in these caste systems, there's people at the top who are like reincarnating. They're very privileged people, and there's lots of slaves that are just live lives of degradation. So that goes on a lot in the meditation traditions. It's shameful. So I actually think we're at the very beginning stages of figuring out how to make meditation truly beneficial. Because when Camille and I spend every day, we interview regular people who are learning to meditate and people who have been meditating for years. And it's like, a lot of times I feel like, why waste your time meditating? You could be taking a walk. The way people approach meditation, it's not that healthy. When people want to just sit to meditate, they have all these voices in their heads, like sit up straight, be mindful, don't have those thoughts, don't feel sexual, don't be angry, be compassionate. You're not doing it right. And it's a war. The way meditation is practiced is often as a war against the self. It's a war against also being a young person and all these ideals. So it's not healthy. It's meditation is more like dieting at least to Americans. It's you're always reading something. Okay, this is going to work. You impose some weird rules on yourself. You starve yourself. You practice denial for a while. Maybe you lose a little bit of weight, but then you've taught your body that there's a famine on, and it should, because whenever you diet, it makes your body feel like, oh my God, there's a shortage of food. I've got to accumulate some fat here, and then you wind up fatter. So people are approaching meditation just like dieting. They're constantly failing, and with each failure, they're damaged a little bit.
Have you come across the Goenka tradition? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, what an amazing thing that he did and that they've all done. Just extraordinary. What a world resource of those retreats. One day, this beautiful 32-year-old young man came over for a session. And he was in love. He was an artist, and he was in love with the female artist, and they had an amazing relationship. And he was very much into the Goenka tradition, had been doing the retreat for years. And he brought over 2 of Goenka's books, and he opened them both, and both of them advocated celibacy. And in one, Goenka was saying this young couple came to him after years of studying with him and said they wanted to become teachers. And so his question was, well, have you given up sex? And so he said, yes, we have. And so he beamed approval. So that idea that you're supposed to be celibate, that was poisoning this young man, and he wound up breaking up with his girlfriend. And for years, he thought he was supposed to be celibate because his experience of doing Vipassana and retreat was so powerful that having this message come in that you're supposed to drop sex. And he was 32, like a healthy young man. It was basically as if you gave chemotherapy to a really healthy teenager and you just poisoned them. These ideas come in and they are like mild chemotherapy. They poison your life force. So yeah, I followed him for a couple of years. He didn't come for more. He came for like 2 sessions. But that goes on a huge amount. That's sort of poisoning against life, where you're imposing somebody else's idea of spirituality upon yourself. That goes on to a great extent in meditation. And it's not written up. But there are so many therapists that are now meditating and teaching meditation that they'll start to notice this. Right now, meditation house, I think there's too high of an opinion. Everybody thinks it's just so great. And they're not looking at the technical issues. And everything has technical. If you start working out, you're going to get sore. And you have to manage the soreness. That's what, like a rest day, you work out and then you give yourself a day or two of rest and your body heals and it becomes back stronger. But if you don't have an off day, you're just breaking down tissue and you can get a repetitive motion injury. This kind of thing happens in meditation. So though it's a great resource. Now, people that are healthy, I was teaching at one of these giant rock music festivals a couple of years ago. So there's like 40,000 people camping out and bands around the clock. So I did a session with this guy, and he had been partying for months, getting ready for this, smoking a little pot and dancing and taking a little ecstasy and then working to organize the festival. And he was really looking forward to one of those 10-day retreats. So his rhythm was to be completely wild and rock out and dance and party, work and dance and party and take substances, and then go to a 10-day retreat and kind of clean up and then get back to partying. So that was a good rhythm for him. It was a little bit like binging and purging.
Yeah.
But it was working for him for the time being. Because while he was partying, he was thinking, oh boy, I'm really looking forward to that 10-day silent retreat.
Yeah.
And then during the silent retreat, he could recover from the exhaustion and just the too muchness. So that was a rhythm. But if we want to meditate every day, just have meditation be just completely reliable, then you need to let meditation feel like a rave. You actually need your meditation to be luxurious. So you just walk home from work, take a shower, lie down or sit on the sofa and just be in a concert.
I
Anyway,
don't know where my question
Jasmine,
was going to go after that.
question.
I don't know if I have one. So what are your practices like now? As beautifully electric as you describe?
And I'd love to hear about your physical practice too. Are you surfing still? What are you up to?
Body surfing and swimming. So I lost interest in boards. I don't know why exactly. And I like to be under the water and in it. So I'd much rather dive under a wave. It's very fun. Wave comes in, you dive different depths depending on the wave. and then you pop out the other side. I have this craving to be in and under the water, whereas with boards you're on top. And I'm 71 or 72, I forget. And so my physical practice is to soak in profound, deep, luxurious meditation for about 40 minutes, half an hour to 40 minutes in the morning. And I use the techniques that are described in the Radiant Sutras and in Meditation Made Easy, so that I'm at the world's greatest concert. Like I'm on Earth, I'm in the solar system. I'm welcoming every experience that I've ever had. I'm tuning the instrument of the body to have the greatest day possible. And then I do a little bit of asana. I have a bit of a wrist injury from the gym a few years ago, and from working on a writing deadline when I was injured. That is a totally stupid thing to do. You have to, when you get injured, don't work through the injury in that way. So I have to take care of my body. One of the things I do is I stay in motion. So this is my standing desk, and I have a couple of big screens. So I can stand here and write, and I'm a fast touch typist, so I can look out the window at the birds and the harbor. And then there's a sitting desk, and then the chair for the sitting desk is one of these it's mounted on springs, so it's kind of bouncy. So one of the things I do is I don't fixate my spine. Like I don't sit just rigidly still for long. I'm always kind of dancing. So I stay dancing.
Nice.
I stay in motion even if I'm at the computer. And at the standing desk,
a balance board.
I have
that's cool.
Like a balance board.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
So this is like surfing the floor. So I'm in motion.
That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, and then I use weights. All the gyms.
I love how when you first started your introduction to who you were, it began with living by the sea and the aspect of physical, like surfing or using the body. And that just, when you speak about finding ways to personally have a practice which excites you, it's so evident how you've definitely found your own in that. And I wonder how it will be for those who are beginning to start to understand themselves, that kind of a journey. It's exciting for sure, but sometimes maybe a little bit overwhelming as to know exactly what is right for them.
Well, one simple practice that anyone can do is think of a moment when you felt thrilled to be alive, just ecstatic. And it could be a great orgasm. It could be the afterglow after sex. It could be that time you took ecstasy and you danced for 5 hours until 4 a.m. It could be wandering in nature, just a moment in a forest. It could be, giving birth or nursing the baby or playing music. It could be, for some people, it's like smoking pot and listening to music. Pick an experience where you're thrilled to be alive, and then practice mindfulness with it. Okay, what am I seeing? Now when I'm in this experience, like, how am I seeing? And just touch that with your awareness for a couple of seconds. Okay, when I'm in this experience, I'm seeing what? Say, I don't I only smoked pot a couple of times in my life, like 12 times. But I love the experience. So it's like the clock sort of stopped. The clock would tick, and then I'd be so aware of the silence, and then tick, and then silence, and tick, where the space, I'd be very aware of the space between me and something that I'm seeing. Or listening to music, like the way that the notes hang in the air, and the way the rhythms move me, or a taste of food. So it could be anything. It could be a vice, or it could be something aesthetic. And okay, what am I hearing? How am I smelling? How is my breathing when I'm in this state? What does my breathing feel like? And if you touch such an experience, whether it's dancing or listening to music or sex or being in nature or being alone, being at a party, if you just simply think of it, recall it, and you could either write in your journal about the experience or just simply recall, you give your brain permission to function that way when you're meditating. In other words, you're giving your brain permission to dial up the intensity of your senses and to associate meditation with joy and with thrill. And that's something that anybody can do. And actually, it's a good remedial exercise for all meditators to do from time to time. It's revisit when you truly feel at home in the world and thrilled to be alive, and construct your practices to be that. Because we always need to be reclaiming ourselves from being lost in the traditions. In other words, bring it back to where this is about my personal experience, and reclaim your own path instincts, your ability to navigate your own inner life and find your way. Because the maps are very generic. All those maps of enlightenment, those are other people and other cultures living in these amazing, elaborate cultural systems and religious systems that actually don't fully exist anymore. They're more like museum things. Where the Tibet that Tibetan Buddhism came from doesn't exist anymore. They're all refugees. It's a heartbreaking. And they're living in India, and they're scattered, like Padmasambhava, this genius Buddhist teacher who helped bring Buddhism to Tibet. He said, in the time when iron birds fly, and chariots go without horses, then the Tibetan people will be scattered like ants, and the Dharma will go to the lands of the West, or to the lands of the red man. They're scattered. And as a result, we have these incredible teachers and all these texts. But that world doesn't exist anymore. We have to reinvent the Dharma for these worlds. Because our world is in crisis. And meditation can help. Meditation can give us the ability to function superbly in crisis. And in a sense, that's what meditation is about. In the body, that's where meditation truly comes from. We're invoking the genius, the survival genius of the human body to integrate the opposites and do the impossible. And in a sense, that's what enlightenment really means. It's the full functioning of the human body. Meditation has a great gift to give to the modern world, but we need to engineer it and build our meditation
Bill
practice
speaks about
from the
this
ground
a lot.
up.
How can we have meditation for the everyday man? Bill, do you want to speak a bit more about that? Everyday man.
Well, I learn constantly from regular people. There's these brilliant things that people invent. Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I'd love to hear more about that. I mean, I wonder about this and how meditation can reach more people, but not in the stilted kind of form that it tends to.
Yeah. Well, we need to listen to people, and it's quite a skill. Like we live on the water, so there's fishermen. We live on a harbor. We're surrounded by water, and there's fishermen. I was walking by. Camille and I were out for a walk yesterday, and this guy was fishing, and I stopped, and I looked at his point of view, and there's just ripples of water and the sunlight shining, and he was just there with the pole in the water. And I said, my God, what a profound meditation. It's an eyes open meditation where he's just there doing absolutely nothing. There's a pole in the water, and maybe once every 20 minutes there'll be a little that. And if we don't know that fishermen might be the best meditators of all, like better than any meditation teacher, but then we don't really know anything. I suspect that these world-class singers and visionary businessmen and people who explore the outdoors, that they are actually the genius meditators. And that those of us that teach meditation, we're like coaches. Like we can be good teachers, but like a singing coach, like Adele singing. Like who's a singer that you love, Bill?
I love Adele. Actually, I've been listening to her a lot.
Jasmine,
so we can
who
keep
do you
going
love?
with Adele.
There you go.
Yeah, well, look up her singing injuries. But like all the singers you've ever heard, they have coaches. They have singing coaches. And the coach is like, okay, your exact voice, how do you take care of your voice? How do you unfold your voice? I actually think that the meditation teachers, they're probably like okay meditators. But like here in LA and New York and in Australia, a lot of the star yoga teachers, they could give a shit about meditation. Meditation is this creepy thing that you teach your students for pay, and it's something that you teach to fuck them up. Like you have to blank out your mind. They quote Patanjali. What they really do is they get stoned every night in order to cut loose, because they need a place where they can really relax. And meditation is this very uptight place where you're in the domain of Patanjali. And so a typical rhythm for yoga teachers, not all of them, but many of the famous ones, and people who've been teaching for 10 years, is that smoke pot every night or every other night, take ecstasy on weekends, and take ayahuasca every 3 months. And when I listen to them describe what they do, like getting stoned and listening to music, that's their real meditation. So you don't know, you'll never know what somebody is really practicing, because it's usually secret. The difference with me is I talk about what I actually do. So for me, meditation is way better than drinking wine, although I love wine. I love the taste of it. I don't drink much. Maybe a sip every couple of weeks. But wine's incredible. I mean, when I take a sip of wine, I can't believe that there's centuries of cultivation behind this, the science. I'm in awe. But I practice meditation in ways better than wine, better than being stoned. And I'm on a journey. So when I listen to the yoga teachers and meditation teachers, when they describe ayahuasca and ecstasy and marijuana, they're on a profound inner journey. They're having amazing experiences, and they're finally going on a journey. They're finally letting themselves be their natural fucking self. Yeah. Not sitting in church and trying to be good, trying to suppress every thought. There's just like, this is yoga. Sit cross-legged so that your knees hurt. Sit up straight and try to concentrate. Like, oh my God, what a workout. So they're pot and ecstasy and ayahuasca. That's the real meditation. And it's a journey. And it's profound. The people are having profound experiences. I don't like to trust all these substances. At the time I was in the lab learning, having these incredible experiences, you couldn't walk from one class to the other without being offered baggies of marijuana, psilocybin, LSD, speed, hash, what else? Mushrooms, and peyote. And it's like, I didn't trust any of that stuff. As a sailor, I knew that to smuggle the chemicals or the substance, even marijuana, they would often, the smugglers would often motor up to a sailboat with the family on it, tie anchors around everybody and throw them overboard, take their boat, and then sail the packet full of marijuana and sail it into the harbor right near me. And the boat would just be sitting there, and police would discover it later with empty, but with traces of blood and marijuana. And it's like, to smuggle stuff is a very sleazy thing. So it's because of the illegality of drugs, they get very dirty. So I've never trusted my nerves to some random substance. Like if I was going to take ayahuasca, I would want to go to South America and live there for 6 months or a couple of years, just live with the natives, eat what they eat, and find a shaman that I trusted and do the whole thing. So the way that I'm approaching meditation, and which is natural for people, is to let every moment of meditation be a journey where you're saying to life, when you approach your meditation practice, you say to life, okay, take me on a journey. Okay, God, okay, my soul, okay, my own life force, okay, my own inner genius, okay, the wisdom within. I'm here, let's go. What do I need to know? You just say this within yourself. This is the deepest, most profound prayer. Let's go on a journey. Because meditation, just for a regular person who comes home from work, is very much a journey. It's an ordeal. It's the same structure as people go through on ayahuasca. It's the same mythic journey where it's very painful to relax, to quickly relax and feel your nerves healing and feel the tension melting off your body. It hurts in a way that we all know. And so there's an ordeal aspect to meditation because you're feeling every nerve, every muscle, every tendon. And then as you melt into relaxation, you can feel the kind of pins and needles of circulation being restored. And it's the same process that goes on during sleep, but in sleep, nature makes us unconscious. In meditation, we're awake and feeling everything. So even 5 minutes of meditation can be a profound inner adventure where we encounter everything that we've been avoiding and face it, and it dissolves, and then we dissolve into peace, and then we're thinking about our to-do list. Life is intense, and meditation is intense and intensely relaxing. So that's the map. That's my approach to the map making. And so we have to develop entire new teaching systems for all the different kinds of people that there are. I was working with a guy that, not the kind of guy that would ordinarily want to meditate, he worked in construction up in Malibu, and though he smoked cigarettes and loved beer and women, but what happens to guys like when they're around 30 is after like a series of failed relationships where they realize, oh, it's me. It's not the woman's fault. Like, it's me. I need to learn how to live. Because ordinary guys who just like work hard and drink beer, it's like not enough. You don't get enough relaxation from alcohol to save the day. Because if you work all day and you come home and you're with a woman, you've got to be on your game. Because women, when we're just speaking generically about male and female, of course, there's transgender people and there's men that are very feminine and women that are very masculine. But the woman's brain, generically speaking, is so hardwired for emotion that you can't just drink beer and numb out. The woman wants to communicate. So here's this guy, and he was perplexed from a relationship that broke up. And we were inside. I said, oh, no, this isn't working. Let's go outside. And immediately he felt more at home. Like he would have never learned to meditate sitting inside. We went outdoors. And I said, let's just look at the ocean. We were on a hill in Malibu looking out over the ocean. And I realized that his awareness, that he didn't quite know, he couldn't have explained it. His inner life was this vast horizon, like on a hill overlooking the ocean. Like his inner, and he loved storms blowing in. But his inner life was this huge space, and he had been thinking that he had to control it, shrink it down in order to meditate. Whereas his natural state was vast. Like he could spend all day outside under the sun. It's being inside for him. That was weird. So we constructed a meditation practice for him that was his natural state, which is in his inner world, there's always the sun. There's a huge horizon. There's the sky, the storms blow in, and the stars come out. There's a mountain. And when he's operating from there, he has the inner security, the sense of both being at home, like grounded, and then welcoming the thrill of the ever-changing weather. When he was grounded in that, it's like he could handle anything. And in order to handle intimacy, because intimacy is terrifying, he had to be grounded in his natural state. And as a matter of fact, alcohol is not his drug. He didn't need any drugs. What he didn't realize is that his natural state is always, it's what psychedelics want to create. His inner natural state was always this vastness. And I don't know how. It's just who he is. And there's no drug that could give him that. He's already there, but he didn't know it, and he didn't know how to inhabit intentionally. So people are really, really different, and you need to listen. The meditation teachers need to learn to listen to each person and then coach them to bring their natural self to learning meditation. We're often setting people back, like giving them the wrong techniques, and they'll lose a few years.
Tricky.
I'm amazed that you guys can even listen to this. You know, the meditation field, it sort of runs on denial. Like, I'm the guru, listen to me, I know what I'm doing. Just do this. Just practice this and everything will be okay.
Oh, I love this. It's so contrary to most of what I've heard about meditation. And certainly I learned through the Goenka tradition. That was really where I started, and it's such a religious take on it. So yeah, we love this stuff. We love this.
It's such a profound gift, but as you said, it's religious.
Yeah.
It's unethical to impose religion on Westerners. It's not unethical. It's like if somebody asks for a glass of water and you put a drug in it, it's like it's going to backfire in some way. And meditation is a basic human instinct. Everybody has the capacity. And there was this couple came to me to learn to meditate together, and she was a very devoted yogi, and they were at a retreat. I don't forget what tradition. It was a Vipassana type retreat. And so she went to the retreat, and he goes, "No, I don't want to." And he walked up the hill. There's the retreat center, and everybody's there sitting for hours and hours and hours. And he walked up on the hill and smoked a cigarette and was just communing with nature. He would look down. And he had this whole readout on who the guru was, the teacher was. He knew the whole thing, that the teacher was sexually exploiting the women in the group. He just, at a glance, he knew the entire thing. He knew that the women, even though they're like these flexible, young, like 30-something yogini women, that they're going to be injuring their knees and their lower backs. He just sort of knew the whole thing at a glance. And it's all true. I followed him for years. We need that kind of multiple perspectives. I mean, I personally have benefited incredibly from long retreats. I mean, it's miraculous. I'm grateful every day for these long retreats, the months where I spend months and months, and for the training of how to take care of the body. But this pattern or this sequence where you do a full set of asana and then you meditate for 25 or 45 minutes and then do a full set of asana again, that is just genius. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to integrate all those enlightenment experiences the way that I did. Because I know people who've done it the other way, not moving.
Yeah.
It's different.
And it can be a problem.
Yeah.
But each body has different capacities. Our bodies are different, and we always want to be cooperating with our essential nature.
Lorin, we're about out of time, and I just want to thank you again for
joining us. Thank you both so much.
Such a pleasure. I wonder, can you point? You would love to. Can you point people at where to find you on the internet?
Yeah.
What to buy? Yeah.
Until recently, I was the only Lorin Roche in the world. It's still probably true. So just go to lorinroche.com.
That's the one.
And the Radiant Sutras is a great way into meditation. And Jasmine mentioned Meditation Made Easy.
This book.
And then a couple of scoundrels have taken the name. So there's some other books called Meditation Made Easy on Amazon. So look for the one by me. And then Camille is a meditation genius, and so Meditation Secrets for Women is fantastic. So yeah, come visit lorinroche.com, poke around, and I love training meditation teachers.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. We'll share the recording with you soon, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, I feel as though
let's get to those other questions.
You're one of those people that when I speak to, sometimes I have it with particular mentors who are currently my mentors, but they ask me, what do you need help with? And they give advice, but often in such a way where it's either through their own stories or direct questioning for me to inquire further into myself. And I always come to the place where I feel like I don't need to ask any questions. Like I already am fine. And I feel like you instill that kind of quality in people. Well, at least during this conversation, I feel that reason. I felt like I could just listen and I didn't have to really say anything.
Nice.
Yeah. That I'm just okay as I am.
It's the tradition. It was amazing to be 18 and when I found teachers in this tradition that the Radiant Sutras comes from, that I was tutored by a circle of geniuses, and that was the same feeling I had. Like, here, go practice this. It's like, go play, go fall in love with life. Go meditate as the way of falling in love with life, and then just go live, and then come back if you have any questions.
Nice.
So cheerful, life embracing. So maybe in the future we could do a session, Jasmine, whenever you get appetite. Like, I want to talk to Lorin again.
Amazing.
We could do some
Yeah,
a coaching session
cool.
and record it.
Yeah.
Or the both of
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's like refining your daily meditation practice.
Yeah, I definitely feel as though like I'm in a space right now in
so
my
fun.
practice
Thank
where
Fantastic.
joy has not been the emphasis, and so much I feel like a massive yearning for it.
Yes. That's so great. So that's the practice then, is being with the yearning. And you might cry and then laugh and feel intense bodily sensations. And you can say to life, like, teach me, guide me. You can say to your inner life and to your instincts and to like the spirit, the great spirit, like, lead me into joy. Teach me. What do I need to know? Because it's actually just tuning into you. It feels like it's inside of you. It just needs permission.
I can feel it, actually.
To flood your body. Yeah. Yeah, I get the feeling that you're right there. It's full of joy. It's connecting with it. Giving it permission. Giving yourself permission to feel that.
I gotta go. Sorry,
Okay.
it's such a pleasure.
Peace and
Thank
love,
you. Yeah,
guys.
go and feed the family and all that.
All right. Onward. That's what it's like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Gotta
you so
feed
much,
the
Lorin.
family.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay, bye.
Good night. Thanks for listening to this episode of Awake In Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Check out the show notes, listen to more episodes, and find our socials at our site, awake-in.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, so do please get in touch.